What's up, guys? It's Humphrey. Today we're talking about the new stimulus relief bill. It's 99% of the way to being finalized, so much so that even Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin believes that Americans will get stimulus checks as soon as next week. Now, this is all part of a $900 billion aid bill that's going to include stimulus checks, jobless aid, PPP small business loans, and much, much more. And we're going to talk about all of that today. So seeing as this bill impacts a lot of people at hand, we're going to go through the bill and see exactly how it impacts you. And so we're going to start off by actually going to the Wall Street Journal, and we're going to actually look at their infographic here, which I thought was pretty great. As you can see here in the infographic, we have $325 billion of this bill going to small businesses, $166 billion in direct checks, which are going to be your stimulus checks, $120 billion in unemployment benefits, $69 billion in vaccines, testing, and tracing, $82 billion to schools, $45 billion to transportation, etc., etc. And the most notable thing here for the smaller amounts is actually the rental assistance, which is $25 billion. So let's talk about the most important item first, and that's actually going to be your stimulus checks. In this round of stimulus checks, each American is going to receive $600 in stimulus payments and $600 per dependent as long as you qualify under the income limits. If you make more than $75,000 individually, $112,500 as head of household, or if your income exceeds $150,000 married, the benefit starts to phase out at that point. Essentially, that means if you make anything under those amounts, which I'll list here on the screen, you will be eligible for the stimulus check. So if you do make more than those income limits, you might still be eligible for the stimulus check, but it just might not be the full amount. I know a frequently asked question is, okay, Humphrey, well, how old do the dependents have to be? And the answer is actually they have to be under the age of 17 to qualify for the dependent amount of stimulus check payment. So a $600 check for dependents is actually $100 higher than back what it was in April and May, which is actually a good thing, but the overall benefit is still reduced, especially for individuals. If you remember back in the first round, people were getting $1,200 per individual and $500 per dependent. So basically, overall stimulus has gone down. And to give you guys an example, a single parent with 2 children will get about $1,800 this round, but back in April and May, they were getting closer to $2,200. Now, earlier in the video, we already mentioned that the Treasury Secretary had said that the stimulus check payments are going to come as soon as next week, but realistically, I think the timing is going to be closer to the end of the year or actually in early January. There are some other frequently asked questions that I think we should go over with stimulus check payments, so I'm going to go over those really quickly here. The first question that is asked a lot is, okay, are these stimulus checks taxable income? And the answer is no. Let me read you this quote from the Wall Street Journal right here. Basically, it says to think of them as an increase to the tax refund you would normally receive in early 2021 and an early payment of that. If you get too much money, which can happen if you qualified based on 2019 income and your 2020 income was too high to get paid, you don't have to pay back the difference. So essentially, no, they are not taxable income. The next frequently asked question of the stimulus checks are, okay, well, what if I had a dependent that was born this year? Like, let's say I had a kid this year in 2020, am I eligible for the stimulus check? The answer right now is no, but there might be a way to retroactively claim them as a dependent so that you're eligible for the stimulus check payment just at a later date. The next frequently asked question with the stimulus check is, what if you're in a mixed status household? So that means what if someone in the household doesn't have a social security number, but someone else does? This time around, you're actually eligible for payments from the stimulus check. It just might be partial depending on how many people in your household have a social security number. Basically, the general rule here is with stimulus check payments is that if you got one back in April and May, you're very likely to get one this time around. Now let's talk about the unemployment and jobless aid that you're going to get within this relief bill as well. So in this bill, there's a $300 per week federal unemployment benefit that will apply for 11 weeks starting December 27th. So this $300 a week benefit is basically a boost to any of the unemployment benefits that you're already receiving. If you remember back in the summer, you were receiving an extra $600 a week in unemployment assistance, but that actually expired on July 31st. And if you remember, after it expired on July 31st, you weren't getting an extra $600 a week, but you were still able to collect unemployment. So essentially what this is saying is, okay, now with your normal unemployment, you're going to get an extra $300 a week from the federal government. In addition, some of the self-employed workers will receive an additional $100 per week, and that just depends on your self-employment status. Hopefully there will be some more details about that I'll be able to share with you guys shortly, but for now, that's what we know about the unemployment assistance. Next up, there's a $25 billion rental assistance package that's included in the bill, and this is actually very interesting. So this article by CNBC that I found actually sums up the rental relief perfectly, and basically it says renters will be eligible for relief if their household income is below 80% of the area's median income. Also, in addition, someone living at this property also has to have qualified for unemployment benefits, has lost part of their income, or has experienced financial hardship through COVID-19, and can actually show that they're at risk of losing their home. It's a little unclear who applies, if it's the tenant or the landlord that actually applies for this relief, but at some point there will be some relief for rental assistance. And in addition to the rental assistance that's actually being given by this bill, the eviction moratorium, which is the temporary hold on evictions, has been extended to the end of January 31st. So if you're a renter that has received a stimulus check and you can prove that you cannot afford to pay rent, you're actually protected from being evicted for another month. Next up, there's going to be $325 billion for small business aid, including $280 billion of that is going to the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, if you remember, the Paycheck Protection Program really incentivizes small businesses to keep their workers on payroll throughout this pandemic. You can apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan at SBA.gov. All the details are there to see if you're eligible, but I do think that the eligibility requirements this time around are going to be a little bit tighter. In addition, one of the really interesting things about this bill in particular is that PPP loans are now tax deductible. What that means is that actually business owners can now claim deductions for expenses that they used their original PPP loans for. Now, this was a big source of contention because if you read right here, under the Treasury decision, a business receiving a $100,000 loan wouldn't count that as income, but would have to forego $100,000 in deductions. Basically, that's the equivalent of just taxing the PPP loan altogether. But now with the new provision, basically the business can deduct up to $100,000 in related expenses, thereby saving them a lot of money. So essentially the PPP loan was tax-free and you can take deductions against it now, so it's basically a double tax benefit. So I think this provision is going to help a lot of small businesses, which I think is really great. But the real question is are the right small businesses getting the PPP loans when they need it? Let's talk a little bit further about what else is in the bill. For example, there's $69 billion to vaccines, testing, and tracing, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, the government wants everyone to get vaccinated and not have to pay for it, so that's essentially what this part of the bill funds. There's $82 billion for schools under the agreement, and of that, most of it is going to public schools with $54.3 billion, and $22.7 billion is going to public and private higher education. There's $10 billion going towards childcare, $9 billion of the bill goes to healthcare providers, and airlines are actually going to receive $15 billion to cover airline salaries and benefits to the end of March. The bill also gives $15 billion to entertainment venues such as independent movie theaters, live entertainment venues, and cultural centers. The bill also includes some other things like $13 billion to farmers, $1 billion to Amtrak, etc., etc. I do think the things that matter the most are going to be the stimulus checks that we talked about today, the unemployment benefits that we talked about today, as well as the PPP loans and the new tax deductions that you can take from the PPP loans. And lastly, the rental assistance and the eviction moratorium, I think, are all really great things. Those are the main takeaways of the bill, in my opinion. Obviously, there are a lot of good things going on for the rest of the economy, but I was hoping that the stimulus checks were going to be greater than $600. And if you agree, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, so that was it. I'll leave links to the articles that I referenced today in the description below. And overall, if you enjoyed this video and got some value out of this video, hopefully you did, leave me a like, drop me a comment, and also subscribe to my channel for more personal finance and investing content. All right, guys, I'll see you guys here in the next video, which will be in a couple days. Peace.